All right. Hey, everybody. Before can't tell you a story that Marcy, an old friend and student from way back, just told. I want to tell you that this is the Kara. What did we call this call? Social media conversation call.
That's about it. Yeah.
That's about it.
Uncompromised Coaches Call around social media.
Because the question is like, do we use it? How do you use it? Oh, I don't want to use. Do I have to use it? All right. So that's some of the stuff we're going to think about and talk about. I don't profess to have all the answers. I'll share my thoughts, and then we'll just give a nice little round robin and solve some problems, push the conversation up ahead a little bit for all of us. But Marcy had a fun little story for us right before we got started. So Marcy, give us that story in a nutshell, if you will.
Well, I was just saying that my best clients, my most exciting clients, are people that find me over the internet all over the world because they want to plan in advance for retirement. They tend to be in their 50s, and they don't want to wait until the bell goes off and have a sharp cut. They truly want to plan in advance so that they're in control of when and how they do it, and they can do it gradually. A lot of people who have worked these incredible hours for so many years really want to ramp their time down. So the last guy I worked with was in Ohio. He was the head of logistics and supply chain for a multi-billion-dollar organization. I worked with him for a session every month or so for almost a year. And he came back and he said, I'm so excited to get started on some of these things that I gave my notice. I gave him 4 months notice, and I'm gone. And 6 months later, he sent me a check for an additional $1,000. And he said, you didn't charge me enough for the benefits I got from this. I love my life now.
So there's so much to unpack there, and you inspire me for another call. I'm going to start doing these calls every month, going from quarterly to creating something more regular and predictable. But I'd love to do a call where we talk about how much to charge. And I just love that you had that experience where, do you not charge enough? Well, maybe not. I don't know. But that story is so good for so many reasons. And the one that just stands out for our purposes, just for the moment, is imagine having your coaching roster full of people who love you, respect you, show up on time, whose name you get excited when you see it, and then send you extra money afterwards because you did such a good job and they respect what you've done. So great for you, Marcy. That's so delightful to hear.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's funny. I'm going to start in with my 2 cents about social media, but you did a great job of humbling me amply. Now, I wasn't going to come out and proclaim that I know exactly, what one should say or think or do regarding social media. Actually, that wipes me out a little more than I like. But there's a line from I'm a big Ralph Waldo Emerson fan, and he talks about Jesus would absorb the race, with his sublime, loving message and all that stuff. But nature gives us a blasphemous Thomas Paine, who's an extreme rationalist, who keeps that from happening. And it's funny how the nature gets her balance, so to speak. And so you're my balance today, because part of me is like, social media, I'm going to be inauthentic. I don't want to have to. And it's like, yeah, well, having a presence, now you got clients coming from around the world. If you do it in a certain way, how do you? So it's a great balance of, okay. And, I think that's what life's about, is perceiving the principles, perceiving the truths, and not thinking that you have found the light, you've got it, and you can hoard it and use it in every situation. It's about how it's applied and how frequently, to what degree. And if, we can hold that as perhaps more of an absolute, quote unquote, now we just worry about, okay, how do we apply these ideas, these truths in a way that really works? So let me talk for a minute and grouse a little bit, or share my thoughts, as scattered, as organized as they've been, around social media. And then I'd love for you guys to commiserate, high five. Yes, I feel the same way, or, how much of ever that's there. And then let's kind of peel away. Okay, now that we're done kind of crying and complaining, what do we know, and what can we build on? And, how can we address some of these things, and, if they can be. So, here's the thing that I always come back to with social media is, Okay. How many posts? Okay. I got to post every day. What? Okay. At least once. All right. And what do I say? Well, you got to say something uplifting or something that helps people. Okay. So help. So it's a meme or, oh yeah, even a picture. Okay. You could retweet something or you could repost something. Okay. I can do that too. But you got to do stuff that's personal. You got to throw some personal. So, okay. So you got to personal so they know who I am. Okay, good. Well, I don't want to show pictures of me and my pretty family. It's like, and then, oh, here I am traveling to here. Oh, now it looks like I've got the perfect life. Does anybody know that I ate too much food last night before I go? I'm not perfect. I don't want to promote a life that Ron looks like he's got it all together. Oh, well, that's okay. Every fifth post should be something that you're working on. Okay, right. So then once a week, I'm going to post something that shows I'm human. So now this is my authentic expression, which is this crazy, ridiculous formula of how to do this many posts and then only ask for them, free fee. So every 17th post, you can ask for the sale. It's like, you know what? I give up. How about I just don't do any of this and, unfriend everybody on Facebook and, go take a nap or build my business a different way, the old fashioned way, make some cold calls or ask for referrals or whatever. And I know I'm posing sort of the extreme as I cycle through, but there's been some version of this that I've gone through again and again, where I don't want to feel, ultimately I don't want to feel pigeonholed. Like I've got to authentically do this formula of things. And so I find myself quitting or I find myself not engaging. And I fed my family well over the years without social media. And I know people who don't use it at all. And I know people who really use it and really know how to use the demographics, the psychographics that can be found, particularly on Facebook. It's an amazing treasure trove, I understand, where you can really carefully target your people. And I think that's pretty profound. I find myself really loving people and not loving to get into the minutia of understanding the technical aspect of these things. And I know I could farm it out, but I end up being a little too controlling and then I find myself just going, you know what, never mind, I'm doing fine. So I guess first, is there an amen out there? Can anybody relate to some of the stuff I'm, yeah.
So much.
Amen.
So, okay.
I am legitimately, I can't do it yet because I have connections to people that I just could never get back but I'm so legitimately looking for a way to delete my Facebook. Honestly, I am done with the platform. I'm kind of done with the toxicity. I'm done with the impact I see it having on the world. And I've kind of switched off. I am on there because there's a piano playing group that I'm a member of, and the CTI Kick-Ass Coaching group and the certification group. And that's it. That's my interaction with Facebook right now. Other than that, if I haven't friended you before, I'm not friending you now. If I'm friends with you now, I've already forgotten your birthday. I've gone back to those days.
I hear it good, brother. It's kind of nice to say it out loud, isn't it?
And everything you just walked through, I think the word for it after a while, because I do know people who get on either Facebook or LinkedIn and do make those, really confessional. And I think the thing that I think after a while, that cycle feels toxic because you're trying to be just vulnerable enough, but you're not trying to give away too much of yourself. And my eyes cross and I'm like, I stopped caring a while ago. Yeah, I'm really, really curmudgeonly about social media in general.
I love it. I'm a big fan of, like I was saying when we first started, is let's just say it. Let's get all the grousing out of the way and then see how much of it's legit. And maybe it's legit for you or for me, but not for others. And maybe it's just across the board. I don't know. But yeah, and we realize there's Instagram and there's all of these things which, Henry David Thoreau talked about, don't become a tool of your tools. And boy, I can see, I just did a dietary cleanse and I was also doing it, a technological lighter version. I'm like, why do I need to go to the bathroom with my phone in my, like, I can't be 30 seconds in there without like, what in the heck? And so there's a way that it's sort of, the phone becomes a ubiquitous thing or the computers or the tools. And so, yeah, there's many tools out there. Many tools could be leveraged and used. And my gosh, I don't want to become a tool of it all en route to being authentic in the world. Like, wait, what? Anyway, how about you other three? What are your thoughts about what I or Roger has said?
I feel similar to you, Roger, with my relationship with social media. Like I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh, I have an arm's length relationship. Like, no, I have an across the room relationship with social media. And similarly, it's like I have, family across the country. And so, okay, like to be able to keep in some contact with them. But it's like once a year, once every 6 months, I'll feel inspired to want to write something. And, I'm new to my coaching practice. And so I did like a few months ago, feeling inspired, put something out there, got a little bit of, engagement from it and just put a little inspiration out there. And at the time I remember thinking, oh man, I have to keep doing this. If people are going to see me and they're going to know what I'm doing, I have to keep doing this and keep putting it out there. But forcing it doesn't feel right either. And so I had the same thing where I was just wrestling with this. Do I really need to do this to get my practice started? And so I've kind of and then Ron started talking about having this call and I was like, oh, good. I'm just going to put that to the side, have this conversation, then see how I want to move forward.
Good.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like in the same page, right? And for the most part, I'm a lurker of social media. And even though I'm not that great at it, I'll say yes to that, but there's a little bit of lingering. Like I don't feel like I'm gonna shut that valve down and forget about it. I think there's perhaps things if I leave it on the plate, but I'm thinking it's a hard job to just keep track of everything. And but at the same time, I think if there's a way to like leverage like meaningful connections and being engaged, like that like one-to-one feeling engaged in social media, which is a hard thing to do, I think it will be easier that way. Right. But it's one of those things that perhaps maybe I don't know, like 1 or 2 of 100 people, they're like potential like real engagement material. Like you can like stay engaged with them because they're like really engaged with you, or they're looking forward to be engaged with you. That's what's coming up to mind for me.
Well, Marcy, I'm curious about your thoughts. You've got a weight to your silence, and I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. And
I just figured that I spewed so much at the beginning, I'd sit back and let other people talk.
Oh, listen, all good. But what I wanted to say, based on what you said, was that one of the pieces of advice that I'd gotten when I did for like, I don't know, 2.5 years, I was doing videos on kind of like things that was going on in the world and running a commentary. I'm a big fan of studying history, not just the books that the victors have written, but it's a little more esoteric type stuff and philosophy and religion and understanding, the greater context of the patterns of being, not just for you and I, but for history, and to recognize that I'm fond of saying, and again, thank you, Emerson, that all history is biography. And to understand history right, we have to understand our own selves. But I did that for years. And I had fun. And it was my sense was like, hey, I know there's going to be a few people every day that I'm going to see every morning at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and they're going to be there. And someone's like, yeah, you do the same thing, whether you're writing or whether you're doing a video, make sure you're writing to a person, or you've got someone in mind. And it's a way and I know that had been helpful for me, right? So it feels like something in all our frustration, or, kind of the slippery ground that we're on, that feels like a toehold that one can put their toes in, to get something solid. It's like, it's not just about looking good or looking authentic. It could be about being in a conversation that, well, here I am doing this with you guys right now. Why? Because I know whether I do social media or not, it's nice to be in this conversation with people who are thinking about the same thing, and I get to learn and you get to learn, and I walk away a little better. And so maybe there's a nugget right there for us to build from in just a moment. So, but Marcy, what's on your mind with all this?
I don't use social media. I mean, I'm on Facebook, and I've got a couple of sites there, one for my business and one for, that's just personal, because I grew up in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and because, various CTI and certification and different programs I've done with Mary Morrissey and Bob Proctor, et cetera. But I don't use it. I've tracked the clients that I've gotten over the years, the people that called me, the ones that engaged me, the ones that haven't. And that's one of the first questions I ask. I'm curious, how did you hear about me? And so I've tracked them, and the people come through referrals, or they come through doing research on their own and finding me in a database of certified coaches based on some topic. So whether it's emotional intelligence, whether it's retirement, whether it's, the leadership circle or the various applications, the Center for Creative Leadership. And
That's great, Marcy. That's a
so
great point.
I really don't use social media. It's exhausting to me. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
And so like doing a webinar, I'm semi-retired myself. And so I really don't take more than like 3 or 4 clients at any given time.
I like what you're pointing to, Marcy. Correct me if I'm, misrepresenting you at all, but it's sort of, you're whether it's with Bob Proctor or the Center for Creative Leadership, you're engaged in doing the things that you really love to do.
Mm-hmm.
In that process, you're getting certified, your name's going on lists, your name is getting out there, and then people see you, they like your vibe, they connect, you win some, you lose some, and you walk away with a few people that you're coaching with. And, that has you not having to struggle and strive and, try to.
Yeah, I used to take the clients. I would take anybody who was interested in whether I liked them or not. And I sweated through hating working with them for 6 months or a year or whatever. A funny example, I had a guy come to me, got referred through somebody. We had one call to talk about the nature of the retirement work that I do. And when we first came on, he said, my hair's curly now. I used to blow it all out straight. And I went through CTI's International Leadership Program, and Karen Kinsey Howell said, you have curly hair. Why do you straighten it every day? And they challenged me with coming with my hair all messy like this. And I've worn it messy like this ever since, because it takes lots less time. Anyway, we came on to the call, and he sat there and he looked at me for a minute, and he goes, wow, the picture on your website's pretty old, huh? I was offended by that, but it was true. And over the course of the call, he talked about how he was already planning for his retirement life, and man, he was really going to hit the road running. He wanted to have his meetings in the morning, and so that he could play for the rest of the day. And I said, well, that answers the question. I'm not your person, because I only work in the afternoons. I work out and I walk my dogs in the morning. So if you need other referrals, I'm glad to give you names.
That's great.
And he would have been, I could tell from one call that he would have been somebody that I would not have enjoyed working with.
Well, this conversation in a good way is bleeding into another one, which I'm going to try to circle it back to the social media thing. First of all, we got to spend our times with people. As I mentioned when I first started my little rant, if you will, it's like I coached, like you mentioned, Marcy, and I think we all go through that stage. It's like, I got to get hours. I got to make some money. I got to do this thing called coaching. And so if you're breathing and you're not rude to me, or too rude anyway, or you're not too irritating to work with, okay, you can be irritating as well. I can endure this for another few months. It's a miserable way to live. You don't do good coaching. You start to associate the misery that you feel on these coaching calls with coaching. That's a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And so you're pointing to something which is really great. You coach people who you really want to spend your time with. After consciously knowing yourself, creating your life the way you want. I coach in the afternoon after walking my dog and Pilates and yoga or whatever. And then whoever filters through there, now we can have a conversation where we work together. Mm-hmm. And so if we circle that back to social media, it's like, and I want to recognize that we kind of have a theme here with the 5 of us, and people who are going to watch us on YouTube in a month or 5 years from now, they are, you might really be great at social media and love it so much. And these are just, all 5 similar voices in a sea of something that you're not used to. Fantastic. What I'll just say is, what is vital with whether you're doing with social media or without social media is you've got to create something that works for you. Mm-hmm. And if at moment 1, you're like, I hate social media. I don't want to be somewhere at a regular time every day making posts. I don't want to pretend I'm engaged and make 15 posts all in advance and then trickle them out, then then maybe it just isn't for you. Of course, there's different perspectives, because you could go, hey, I mean, I could sit on the beach with my toes in the sand, typing out 15 inspiring messages and then put them in some program that trickles it out over the next week. And so my job is to sit on the beach and think of inspiring things for 2 hours once every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty good gig too.
Could work. Yeah,
that could work. So we don't want to put nails all the way in the coffin. We want to realize that there's a lot of things to be cranky about, and yet there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, if you will, and have it really work for you. I'm trying to think of if I said, no, I don't think I mentioned a buddy of mine directly. But he goes by CJ Ortiz. I don't know if he still goes by the moniker of the Metal Motivator, but he is a brilliant marketing guy. I knew him from a kind of a past life, and I watched him from no followers to, I guarantee he's got 50,000 followers on Facebook, maybe many more. But who does he target? Metalheads. He's a big metalhead. He's a personal growth guy, and so he knows how to go in there surgically and look up metal, people who are into these bands, who are into, who would read these types of books, who would do these things, and he gets himself in front of people, and he has developed a hell of a following and people who buy his products. And he went from being a marketing guy and a graphic designer to he's a metal motivator now, and he just comes up with creative and inspiring and brilliant messages, thinking and talking about things that are important to him, and he provides for himself and his family. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the things you said earlier was how I'd prefer to do it, because I think the thing that really exhausts me is the needing to market yourself. And the reason I hesitate from that is I don't want to market myself, and I don't want anyone else to have the life I have. I mean, I no complaints about the life I have, but I see these people trying really hard to show that they drive a nice car, and I too can pose in front of a sailboat that may or may not be my own. And it just looks so artificial, and it just looks so contrived, and it just looks so forced. But you mentioned being a real history buff, and I've noticed when I'm not thinking about myself and I am thinking about something I am really interested in, I am a different person. The marketing comes easy. And when I'm thinking about someone else and saying, hey, there's this cool thing over here, this is awesome, I have a completely different energy. I bring a completely different energy because I'm not trying to narcissistically make myself the center of everybody's focus.
It's funny, when I was doing let's just keep, and please, everybody, don't worry about being polite. Let's just have this be a free-for-all conversation. So if I'm excited now, please, Jorge, jump right in on top of me here. It's all good. When I was doing those videos, I talked about what I want to talk about. And a lot of times it was, there's sort of the myth of like, oh, the Democrats are the good guy, or the Republicans are but meanwhile, it's like, yeah, once you become a gazillionaire senator, blah, 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 things are, well, anyway, I won't go into it now. But we all know there's plenty of hypocrisy in civil governments to go around. And I find myself talking about that. I find myself talking about, the sort of like the Roman circus. It's like, oh yeah, here we have our Super Bowl, then it's going to get the next thing and the next one, let's keep us distracted. So, what? And even if it's not a conscious thing that's going on by some controllers behind the scene, guess what? It's just somebody else who's vying for your time. They've got an agenda for you. They want your time, your attention, your energy, your money, it's like, whoa. And so I found myself talking about that and going like, all I know is what's important to me is I don't know, I meditate in the morning, I slow down, I have my thoughts. Well, what do you guys think? And now I'm engaged day by day in conversations about things that I really want to be engaged with. And sort of to your point, I don't think sort of, but to your point, Roger, it's now I'm engaged in or facilitating a conversation that I want to take part in. And there's no looking over my shoulder like, oh, did I bring the right shirt? Did I do this enough? Did I put a nice tagline in? It's like, anybody else want to have this being part of this conversation? Great. Let's talk. Yeah. And, maybe there's
follow what you love.
Say it again.
Follow what you love.
The money will not necessarily follow. I speak from experience on that one.
But there's a
there's a concept called ikigai, which is like, you know, market fit for what you do love, so that you manage to get all of the things.
Say that. I want to make sure I didn't interrupt you to the point where it's incoherent. So right, there's a thing like, do what you love, the money will follow. That's true, and it's completely not true, because if you don't do certain other things to build your business around that which you love, or to indicate, hey, I'm available, by the way, around the things that you love. So just finish your thought then around that.
There is a thing called supply and demand. The two things I really love. I love arts. I did the starving artist thing. Newsflash, you actually starve. I learned that the hard way. And I'm kind of stubborn, so I really think I needed to learn it the hard way. In pursuing that, I planted seeds for a really just ridiculously prosperous, as far as I'm concerned, life, and ridiculously full, rich life. It's like they say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. I don't think I knew the tree that I was planting 20 years ago, but I love it.
So how does that tie that into what Marcy was saying, which is like, do what you love, because there's no time like the present. You only have power in this moment, right? So
I think there's a negotiation, and this is where the Japanese concept of ikigai becomes something that I end up sharing with clients a lot. You are always in a negotiation between what you love and what the world actually wants, and what the world will actually pay for. And I think there's a really interesting tension there.
So good. And this might not be necessary at all, but I want to like maybe throw a nuclear bomb into this conversation a little bit, because I charge between 60 and 100,000 a year to coach with me, and I get paid. Yep. And you know what? And one of the reasons, you know, Roger, you mentioned, and I work out other deals depending on, like, I've got a client that did a couple of years with me, and then we work out something else. So it's not precisely along those lines, but it's still kind of, you know, but guess what? Like you, I need to get hit with the head of the 2x4. This is my version of what you said. It's like, I got to find out the hard way. I got to go into the deepest, darkest, smelliest and find out, is this real? Is this? And I need to get hit in the head again and again and again to go, oh, right. And I needed to do that in my younger days as a coach, suffer again and again to go finally, okay, I don't want this. I want this other thing. And so I struggled at $300 a month. I struggled with this. I tried this. I coached people who I didn't want to coach with, who didn't really, I didn't jive with, but I'm like, well, you breathe too. You grow hair on this. Me too. Oh my gosh. I think you know what? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm a liar, and I'm lying to myself first, and then you second. Talk about inauthenticity, so I can get your $300, so I can, and it's like everything you do when you build on a lie and build on self-contempt and all that is a mess, and you're miserable, and your coach miserable. So there is a way that, and my pool of people who can afford that isn't huge, but there is a sizable pool of people. There are people who are paying me that, and I get referred. So there's something there with that. And you know what? You could be huge into the retro mod car thing. And guess what? Guys that can afford a $350,000 truck from 1950 can pay for those coaching. Are there people who also then want to be excellent in their lives or conscious in their retirements? Absolutely. And so there's a little bit of, we've got to be, I think, grounded in reality, whatever that is, as well as not shut the door on, oh, there's abundance out there. There are women who are quilters whose fathers, and I'm being stereotypical just to make it nice and easy, whose fathers have lots of money and are, you know, keep them well fed. There are men who, but whatever, you name it. And so I want to lean back on what Marcy said to make sure that do what you, right?
Yeah, nothing that I said is an attempt to put Marcy in the wrong, because I do believe that following what you love is the way to go. I think you also kind of have to have your antenna up and be prepared to shift and bend. And I think sometimes stubbornly saying, I'm going to do this, just personal experience, that I've found more happiness in the adjustments.
That's great. So it's not so much that, well, there's no money in, I used to work with triathletes. There's no money in triathlon. Well, that's not true. It's maybe how you're going about it, Ron, or the group of people that you've clung to. So don't stop wanting to work with triathletes. Take a look at what you're doing and who you're around.
Figure out who your niche is and your ideal client.
Right.
I charge $350 to $500 an hour. And I knew that I wanted executives. It was executives because they earn big bucks. And I wanted them while they're still working so that they still have income coming in and they don't cry every time they write a check.
Right. Beautiful. Roger, thanks for clarifying and not letting me pigeonhole you accidentally. What else is popping out there, guys?
I'm thinking about how, so for the last 5-6 years, I've worked in marketing. I'm a copywriter. And so a big part of what I do is researching what the market wants and getting that voice of customer and putting that all into your website and doing Facebook ads and all these kinds of, traditional marketing funnels. And with building my own business, I tried in the beginning, I kind of tried to, put my marketing hat on and put this stuff on, and it just didn't feel right. And so it's been interesting as a marketer, I've taken all of my marketing knowledge and thrown it out the window. And when I started building my website, I was like, I just need to speak from the heart and speak from what's alive for me right now. And things will start to become clear as I go. But I've just as an observation, I just found it really interesting that I've kind of just put a lot of the stuff that I do for my client, my marketing clients, kind of on the shelf as I'm trying to, build my own practice.
It's amazing. What would you say is a chief insight for you around that?
Not sure. It's just something about authenticity and just staying true to me. And I'm still figuring out exactly the people that I want to help. And so all I can do right now is just think about what's true for me right now.
I don't know if you guys have found this too, and Kara, you experienced this because I know you just did your website. Is writing about oneself can be challenging, and I know for me it's like, okay, I'm time to write my bio again, new bio for my website, and I don't want to write about myself. And then sometimes you go, okay, I can suck it up, and I can do it for a time, and I can knock this out. It's a good biography, little autobiography, right? But as we apply this to the social media thing, it's for me is the sustaining sort of putting stuff out there to appear X, which of course, as soon as you do that, you're automatically you're kicking down the door of inauthenticity. Now, a buddy of mine just sent me to this guy. He's like this bald, overweight, tattooed guy. And if you saw him, you'd be like, you wouldn't be impressed, and you'd probably make up stuff about him that wouldn't have you want to subscribe to his channel. The guy starts talking about the theory of light and all these things. And he is so well studied and brilliant. And I'm all of a sudden one of his great fans. And if he said, for example, I do some coaching and I help people do blah, blah, blah. It's like, wow, to be in a conversation with that guy and on a regular basis, but it's about me and how I can do. It's like suddenly, he opens a door for me to go, well, maybe I don't have to be talking about personal growth on all my posts and living the spiritual or the philosophical or triathlon or whatever the thing is, right? And so I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
If it's an authentic love and interest of yours, you're going to draw people that have similar interests and passions.
It comes back to what's your mission? Do you have a mission? For me, it's, you don't have to dread work at all. Work can feel like not work, absolutely. And you can actually just wake up jazzed to do it because it's not draining you. And I know because I'm living it, and I know because I've taught people how to do it. It's not difficult. It's just to make the leap to actually do it is difficult. And once I'm talking about that, I'm very clearly hard to stop.
Mm-hmm. I think that it comes to, and tell me what you guys think, is it seems to me then the idea is and I've said some version of this for years. It's like, who do you want to be in a conversation with? You know, like I coach people around retirement, or I coach people to live the uncompromised version of their life. It's like, that's what I want to talk about. Well, great. Then that's that's what you do. And then suddenly this is not a hard thing. It's just natural, right?
Because even like the one post that I did, months ago it came from an authentic place of feeling inspired and wanting to just put a little inspiration out there. And I remember one of the comments that I got that just said, wow, I really needed that today. That's all that right there was the payment that I needed for putting it out there.
That's so great. That's so great.
But then it's like the pressure to continue that and like feeling this need that, oh, well, now I got to do it again. And now I got to deliver again. That's where, it started to, become inauthentic.
But the people that do podcasts, how they come up with, they have to be extroverted, how they come up with what to talk about. And you can interview people on topics and you can go about it in different ways. But, and people walk around with their earphones on, listening to podcasts all the time. Or you get into programs where you're supposed to be listening to these whatever programs, the recordings while you're driving. I don't drive anymore. When do I do that? When I'm walking my dogs?
Probably not.
But yeah, it's interesting.
But people are, podcasts are huge, and that sort of things is huge. And even that guy that I was talking about, if I had to put money on it, his vibe, I would say, is probably more introverted than extroverted. And every day he comes on and has 15 or 30-minute long conversation with people, and then he just gets up and walks away, and that's it. That's it. And so, what I'd love to do, what time is, 3:42. I'd love to start rounding the corner, and let's begin to build, let us assume that social media could really work for us. That means the five of us, because that's all we have to play with. We don't have others to bounce off of who are excited and can tell us about all their success, like my friend CJ. And so what do we already clearly know? And let's come from a place of knowing, right? Rather than no fussing, no complaining for the next 18 minutes. So we know it has to, whatever we post has got to be authentic, right? So let me see, I'll tell you the couple things that come up for me immediately that we've already come up with is you got to be engaged in a conversation you want to be engaged in. And automatically authenticity is going to come with that, but authenticity, if we can hold it as a second, I think those are two big ones. What else do we absolutely know about if we're going to engage social media, from just writing the bio on your website to engaging in any or all forms of social media conversation you want to be in, and authenticity? What else?
It has to be a contribution, because it's not just passion. I can be passionate about it, but if it doesn't contribute to others, it's perhaps fall out of gas, right? We just
let's define that, Jorge. Go into a little more detail. So it's a contribution. Would you say it's a contribution is this a contribution that I'm having this conversation that I want to be a part of right now about social media? Is that a contribution?
I believe so.
What makes it a contribution?
There's interest from others.
Okay.
Others, but perhaps adding to others' meaning and goals, success, whatever.
It could help change people's perspectives, how they think about different topics, widen their lens.
So I think there's actually two things in that. So it's really, if we look at contribution, what we're beginning to define contribution as is, look at your what do you want to say? You're touching someone's interest. Because if we're talking about triathlon, I might not be growing as a result of like that. People don't want to necessarily grow. They want to be entertained. They want to maybe think about some things, whatever. So maybe it's not a direct, I am now a better man as a result of having listened to this thing. The other thing is change. Like I could change or grow, right? It scratches an itch of interest and it could help me change. So there's a couple bits. Those are contribution. What else? What do we know about engaging social media?
Something around timing. and I'm thinking about this notion that you need to be consistent with your posting and have, consistent times where, for me, I know if I'm going to post, the inspiration, the feel has to be right, not on a schedule.
Cool. I'm going to write inspiration driven, VEN, as a shorthand. And what strikes me with that is that little example I mentioned earlier is, hey, I know the times when I was on an absolute roll doing memes, and I would use like the cover of my journal is here. I'd use this, without that on there. And then I'd, write a little thing in there. So people are just, every time people saw that picture, they would know that it was my branding. And that's kind of cool. And, but I would do sometimes 5 or 6 of those in a day. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm done for the week. And so when I think about inspiration is, Ernest Hemingway and other writers have talked about, you just have to schedule writing. You might not be inspired, but you got to go do the thing. And I know that worked for me, whether it was my podcast or whether it was in my writing. Is just, it's not 8 o'clock in the morning. This is what you do. It's your job. So sit there until you're inspired, work through and write out some foolish things so you can get to the 2 or 3 nuggets and then get your toes out of the sand and go take your dog for a walk and whatever. And, so I think that we have to put ourselves in the way of success, which means do the thing, and inspiration will come. And some days it won't. And some days you'll create 6 memes or 6 quotes or 6 ideas. And some days you might have nothing, and that's okay. But in aggregate, if you find yourself doing the thing, you're going to, 1, get better, and 2, you're going to have enough to keep going. I know that was and had been true for me when I was engaged.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman has a recommendations about how to get writing done, and he basically gives himself an hour, if not 2, a scheduled amount of time where he can do 1 of 2 things. He can be writing or he can stare. That's it. Like, no other distractions around, away from anything else if he can help it. Just give yourself that time. And I think it's the showing up, because eventually it's not a question of inspiration. It's like the first week or so of doing that is probably going to feel really stilted and feel really awful. And then a weird thing happens and you just find yourself able to produce stuff.
What's funny too, and I've gone through this. I think about my wife's going to beat me up if I'm confessing for her, but she did not want to do videos. And and I remember saying to her, it's like, and it's not because I'm brilliant, it's just because I've walked through it 1,000 times before, and she's brilliant. And it's like, I'm just reminding her of things that she already knew. It was like, how many times have you not been as good at this as you are now? And it's like, just do the thing. And of course, she does a video today, she does it another day, and you can watch her go from in her earliest videos where she's nervous and kind of smiling her way through anxiety to now she's just easygoing, shares a little thought, nothing huge, and she's done. And it's like, oh my gosh, how. So yeah, practice, schedule time, just do the thing and you get better at it, right? Roger, was it you who told me that about writing in the first 2 sentences?
Oh God, yes.
Say that one liner, see if we can tie that in here, because I thought it was so brilliant.
If you're writing a piece, you have, and I studied, I have a master's of fine arts in creative writing, and I studied with 2 Pulitzer Prize winners, etc. I've done a lot of writing, and writers get really good at encapsulating everything you're about to read in just about the first sentence or 2. And I can actually if you give me a really good book, I can show you how it's setting up the entire rest of the book. And I can tell if I have a really bad book if it's not doing that.
Well, after you told me that, I thought of several books. I'm like, like A Tale of Two Cities. Oh, it was the best times, it was the worst times, right?
Hello. And then it's actually an awesome example. Yeah.
It's like you're in. And I've gone through some other books, and I shared it with a friend of mine who's a prolific reader, and he all of a sudden starts riffing off all these books where he remembers the first line or 2 lines. And but I guess I don't know how to tie that unless somebody can help me out here with what we're talking about, except that, guess what? That didn't come to Charles Dickens or Emerson or whomever, Shakespeare, in the first writing. It's you show up day after day after day after day, you do the thing, and then things get cleaner and cleaner, and you can refine your message, take people through a journey. And but yeah, any other thoughts about saving Ron from his excitement about that bit of wisdom you have, Roger?
No, I'm sitting here. I'm actually coming up with starts of books. Like there's a line in 100 Years of Solitude. It's like, at the time of his execution, Aureliano Buendia remembered the time his father brought him to see ice. There's like, first of all, and the execution that doesn't happen until the middle of the book. It's just things like that. And you can probably, if any book that has really, really thrilled you, you can probably think of something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was I mentioned Charles Dickens because I think we were talking around Christmas time, and how's A Christmas Carol start?
Marley was dead.
To begin with.
Yeah.
It's like it's a queer line. 2-3
pages establishing no, this guy was dead, because because we don't establish he's dead, then there's no ghost showing up, and therefore there's no miracle happening. It's just live guy shows up, warns, and that's it.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not sure how to tie that into the other stuff, except
I will say that's one of those things. It's a real art, and it's where the rewriting becomes the magic of it, because you can start to look at it that way. The exact same way. It's like, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, go write an opera. I'm not going to say go write like that. You kind of need some formal training around that area, but showing up is the way to get yourself there. And showing up, writing the thing that you hate, and turning it around into the thing that you hate a little bit less, and then eventually you have a thing.
So let me see if I can capture, and I invite everybody else to correct me or add on or anything else. So we've got a few thoughts about if you're going to go the route of social media, which is so valid. And like I said, from my buddy CJ, very profitable, very useful. He's lethal at it. He's outstanding, right? And he's one example of many, because we know, people like, like a Tony Robbins. I know that he has budgets in the millions each month because he gets tens of millions as a result back. So it works. If you have the right offer, the right language, you're willing to do this and show up again and again and again and again. So, the question is, what conversation do you want to be in? It's got to be of authentic interest. It's a contribution, which means, people are interested in it, besides just you. And that interest might extend to like change and everything else, which, I think as soon as you're talking about personal growth, regardless of what you're talking about, if we can apply what we're talking about to personal growth, well, that knocks on the door for people in their minds to equate us to coaching and being able to improve their lives as we're changing or improving their lives just in a one-way dialogue. Do it in a way that works, consistent, and do it from a place of inspiration. Schedule to do it. And like we were just saying, is sort of do it again and again and again, and you'll get better. For those of us who are not walking away going, oh yeah, now I'm excited, I'm going to go for it. What are you walking away with? And let's actually have this sort of be our sort of closing thoughts. Let's go all the way around the horn, and I'll go last. What are you walking away with, whether you engage social media or engage it differently? What are you walking away with from the conversation for yourself regarding your coaching, your continual development of your business?
I don't know where the horn starts for you.
All right, the horn will start with you, handsome.
Okay. I'm probably going to do a little neurodiverse jujitsu on this one. I'm thinking of all these stories I want to tell. Mm-hmm. Instead of starting with like, what do I have to say about myself? I'm realizing I got about 4 or 5 things I just want to tell people about. And they can, and I can put them out on social media, video, video or written, probably written, because that's what I'm most comfortable with. And that can be my, that can be how I work this, is just find the story, find the place to start.
That's awesome, man. So it sounds like, yeah, start engaging in the thing that you love and start sharing it. Beautiful, brother. Nice work. Who wants to call themselves the next on the horn?
So so for me, I mean, following this conversation, and I'm similar to Roger, I have so many things in my head that I'm still yet to reveal and put out there. But kind of like writing, expect like a first shitty first draft, right? Like putting something out there. It's just gonna be rough, right? Don't and keep learning from that, and then keep doing it. I think the word consistency was thrown out, but perhaps that's also meaning like to take the learning, you know, see it as an experiment and see what lands. And perhaps this has not been said, but not everybody's your audience. So, you know, you can be put something great out there, and 10% are gonna like throw tomatoes to you. So keep consistent at it, right? That's the thought.
That's great. That's great, man. Is there a specific something you're walking away with? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this today or tomorrow.
I'm gonna start writing first shitty drafts for myself, right? And putting it out there. So
Great.
perhaps 2 weeks from now, something out there for others.
I'd love to put you on the hook for something like even, hey, tomorrow's my first day, or tonight I'm going to write for at least 20 minutes. What will you do specifically?
So over the weekend, I'll spend at least 1 hour, like trying to go deep in a topic. And if I don't go that deep, set up some ideas of topics that I have in mind as well for 1 hour.
Fantastic. Now I'm kind of a pain in the butt, so you're gonna have to deal with me. And what about today? I don't care if it's I'll clean off my desk or go buy the pen that I like. What will you do today to facilitate for that to happen? Facilitate that happening.
Let's I'll set myself to like 10 minutes because that's I think what I got today for deep thinking on this.
Great.
On it. So I'll start dabbling on it today.
10 minutes. You're going to dabble, or you're going to handle 10 minutes or take care of 10 minutes?
I'll take care of it in 10 minutes. I have a board here, and I'll put thoughts in letters.
Perfect. Thanks for letting me ride you a bit.
Got it.
Marcy, we're going to clean up the horn. We're getting a little chaotic here on my horn.
I know I have to run, so I'm still questioning social media for me because of the fact that I'm semi-retired and my client is a very specific niche. So I've found it to be helpful and useful, and you have opened up my thinking to it a little bit. But don't pin me down like that.
I know. I can tell.
Yeah.
Good. Like I said when we started, I just want the wheels to turn for all of us a little bit and get us thinking maybe a little bit differently, or thinking a little bit more. Thanks, Marcy.
It's great to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
I actually feel really comfortable proceeding kind of how I have been in a way. As far as, right now, social media is not where I've been finding my new clients, and it's not where I'm, reliant on to find my clients right now, but there is a lot of people that I do want to know what I'm up to and what I'm offering. So I do want to use it as a place to put myself out there without committing to making the business Facebook page, making consistent posts, and doing all of the treadmill of it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. For me, what I'll say is I am clear after this conversation. I was before, but it feels conscious that, I don't want to do anything with social media right now. I don't have to. I don't enjoy it. But I think through this conversation, it woke me up again to, it's easy to kind of nurture a perspective because it works for you. I don't want it to work for me right now. I don't want to do that work. And so it's easy to kind of, tell myself a story around it. And so it's good to have a checkup to make sure that I don't continue to buy my own nonsense too wholesalely, if you will. So, but it's time. It's 4:00. Bye, Marcy. Bye, all. And keep your heads up for the next call.